Rockland, Ontario, was founded in 1868. Located 35 kilometers east of Ottawa, Rockland sits on the south shore of the Ottawa River, facing Thurso, Quebec. The community is located in the county of Prescott-Russell, whose first inhabitants were American Loyalists. Following them came French Canadians from Lower Canada, the present-day province of Quebec. They settled in the area because land was becoming more and more difficult to find in their hometowns. These French Canadians established the villages of Hawkesbury, Clarence Point, Clarence Creek, and Cumberland. Rockland's founding in 1868 coincided with the establishment of a sawmill at McCall Point by William Cameron Edwards. Born in Clarence Creek in 1844, Edwards began working in the timber industry in Thurso at a young age. He started W.C. Edwards and Company and built several sawmills in Ottawa and surrounding areas. The village of Rockland grew around the Edwards mill, and its population soon reached 350 residents. Edwards personally gave Rockland its name, basing it on the rocky landscape he saw around him. He was also Rockland's first postman. Edwards was also a politician. A member of the Liberal Party, he was a member of Parliament from 1887 to 1900. In 1903, he was appointed to the Senate, which he served until his death. Here's a fun fact. Edwards once owned the residence at 24 Sussex Drive, now the official residence of the Prime Minister of Canada. Edwards hired many French Canadians. These men would chop down the trees of the surrounding forests and drag them to the river, where they floated down to the sawmill. The employees lived in dormitory-style housing near the sawmill. In the winter, they lived in the woodyard in the forest. Rockland's population increased as people moved to the area to work in the sawmill and brought their families with them. Many workers built houses near the mill on Wood Street. Edwards also built 150 houses, which he rented to families for a monthly fee of $4. In order to supply the families with food, clothing, and tools, the W.C. Edwards General Store was opened on the site of today's Chamberlain Garage at the corner of Laurier and Edwards. Employees could only pay for their items using company-issued tokens. In 1875, a fire destroyed the Edwards sawmill, but it was quickly rebuilt. Eventually, families began to construct their houses further east along Main Street, now called Laurier Street. Two sections emerged, Rockland West and Rockland East. From 1875 to 1895, the west side of Main became the center of town. All stores and services were located there, including the elementary school, the Sainte-Trinité Catholic Church, businesses, and the town hall. In Rockland East were houses, the cemetery, and the veterinary's office. Rockland East soon had a nickname, the Taro. Its origins are uncertain, but many believe the name is derived from the French pronunciation of the English tar road. Folks living in Rockland West use the word taro to insult those living in Rockland East because their roads weren't paved. Not to be outdone, the folks in Rockland East called those living in Rockland West the pitons, referring to the tokens that the sawmill company used to pay its employees. At first, Rockland was considered too small to have its own church. The village became a mission of the parish of Sainte-Félicité in Clarence Creek. Parishioners had to make their way there to attend services, a difficult 8-kilometer journey. In 1887, a wooden church called Sainte-Trinité was finally built in Rockland. 2 years later, the village got their first resident priest, Pierre-Siméon Hudon. In 1899, the village church was destroyed by fire. Reconstruction took 2 years. In 1916, yet another fire destroyed the church. It was rebuilt on top of the ruins of the former church. In 1890, Father Hudon established the first Catholic school, l'Académie du Sacré-Cœur. Hudon attempted to make school mandatory, but many families objected as their children were busy working in the sawmills. In the early 1900s, additional primary schools were opened. l'école du cimetière, l'école Sainte-Famille, and l'école Saint-Joseph. All these schools were eventually shut down, and all children were sent to the new, larger École Sainte-Trinité, which opened in 1952. The first high school opened in 1906, and it too was eventually shut down in favor of a new, larger building. It was called L'Escale, which opened as a bilingual school in 1961. The building housing the very first high school is currently Rockland's City Hall. In 1888, the Grand Trunk Railroad was built for the transportation of goods and merchandise, increasing the town's population considerably. The station was located at Saint-Jean Street, at the corner of today's Raymond Street. The train stopped there once a day. In 1908, a Canadian Northern Railroad linking Montreal to Ottawa gave the population yet another boost. This rail line followed the route of today's Highway 174. In 1915, electricity became available in Rockland for the first time. It was first installed at the sawmill and the home of William Cameron Edwards, and then in some public buildings, private homes, and streetlights. During the first few years of electricity, it would be cut off every night at 11 p.m. Life still revolved around the Edwards Mill. At its peak, it employed over 1,000 people. Around 1918, Edwards sold his business. We can't be sure if he did this because of failing health, as he died 2 years later, or because of his duties as a senator. The new owners of the mill closed it down in 1928 due to the economic downturn that followed the First World War. Many residents moved to Hull and Gatineau to find work in the mills there. After the Second World War, the population began to increase again. The number of residents grew steadily until about the year 2000, when the population increased rapidly due to the growth of nearby Ottawa. In 1998, the town of Rockland merged with Clarence Township to become Clarence Rockland, a city with a current population of about 25,000 residents. Thank you for watching our short history of Rockland. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.